So if you've already joined, I would encourage you to navigate to briskteaching.com and add Brisk for free if you haven't done it already. If you're unfamiliar with Brisk and this is the first time that you're really hearing about it, it will go a lot smoother if you're able to play around as we're going through the presentation. So briskteaching.com, and go ahead and add Brisk for free at the top right corner where that green button is. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, so if you have any questions in the process, I'm happy to answer those just throughout the presentation this morning. So feel free to put your questions in that chat. And as you have a few moments before we get officially started, navigate over to briskteaching.com and add Brisk for free in your Google Chrome extension. It should walk you through the process. You can also pin Brisk amongst your extensions, so you'll have access to it, and it should look like the little Brisk icon behind me on my virtual, in my virtual background. So it looks like a bee with an arrow. All right, and Melissa, are you our facilitator today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I know we want to stay on schedule, so I'm happy to get started as people filter in. But if you want to hit the record button so that we are ready to go, and then this can go into your archives of all of the different tools that are being covered within the EdTech conference.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, well, I'll get started then. If you are here to learn a little bit about brisk teaching, then you're in the right place. So the name for this session is Leveraging Brisk Teaching, Speeding Up Your Workflow with AI. So we're going to go through some of the different capabilities of Brisk, but with a heavy focus on Brisk Boost, which is our student-facing tool. So if you're familiar with Brisk already, you'll know us more as a teacher assistant, but we do have Brisk Boost, which you can leverage this year. And so that's going to be a bit more of the focus of today's session. So that not only can you speed up many of the things that you're already doing as a teacher, as you're preparing to instruct students, prepare your lessons, and prepare to deliver them and give feedback to students more frequently and at a faster feedback loop. But then we're also going to focus on how to engage students with the Brisk Boost activities so that they have a bit of a more engaging experience altogether as they master the content that you're already teaching within the classroom. So without further ado, I will introduce myself. My name is Cheryl Kohler. I've been working with Texas districts better part of 2 decades. So I was in the classroom once upon a time when I looked much younger in my headshot and ended up leaving the classroom as a result of a reduction in force. But I absolutely loved being in the classroom and then started working for Scholastic and a couple of other ed tech companies that you may be familiar with, like Turnitin. I spent 5 years at No Red Ink most recently, and then joined the Brisk team earlier this year because AI was such a hot button topic and I wanted to be part of the excitement. So the picture on the right side is just from this summer's ISTE where we had some rented Ferraris, rented, not bought, but rented Ferraris branded to really get the word out about what Brisk can do, which is speeding up your existing workflow. So many of the places that you're already working, like Google Docs, Google Slides, your HQIM, or some of the other websites that you might trust already. You can speed up the workflow to create lesson plans to go along with it. And that's all going to be within the existing suite where you're already working. So we're going to go over a little bit on what Brisk is, how it functions. If you haven't done so already, navigate to briskteaching.com and add Brisk for free at that green button on the upper right side because it'll make it a lot easier to follow along within today's session. And then you get to actually play around with the tool today. And then we'll go through some of the ways that other teachers around the state are leveraging Brisk to save 10+ hours a week. And then I'll wrap it up with some tips and things to know before you go. And I'm happy to take questions throughout the presentation. So please feel free to add those into the chat on Teams. So I am not thrown off by questions coming my way in the middle of a presentation. You don't have to wait until the end. So it's absolutely perfectly fine to add in some of those questions as we go along. So I want you to think about one lengthy teacher task that you've already done this past year or plan to do as you prepare for the year ahead. And so that can be everything from maybe lesson planning. I mentioned feedback before, so giving feedback on or grading student papers, but just kind of like have that in your mind. And we've got a small enough group here. I would love to have folks, enter in the chat. What's one thing that just takes up the most amount of time? Just one element, because most likely Brisk can help you do it a little bit faster and save you a little bit of time throughout the week. So if you feel so inclined, feel free to enter in within the chat any particular lengthy teacher task that you've done this past year or are planning to do as you prepare for this school year. So I have constructed my own list. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. We've got some notes that are coming in from AI. So this is my list of some of the things that I did as a teacher that took up a ton of time. So I've mentioned lesson planning several times. Every lesson plan took me about 60 minutes at least to type up from scratch. And this was, like I said, about 2 decades ago. So we've come a long way in efficiencies with lesson planning now. Translating or just searching for the right text for my students, particularly if they are speaking other languages than English, right? So finding all of those texts and then being able to translate it. Checking a student's work for academic integrity. If we have the tools, sometimes it goes faster, but if we don't have tools, then we just have to kind of take a passage of their text in Google and kind of see if it matches something that we find on the internet. So that was a task that took significant amount of time once upon a time. And then we also have depth of knowledge questions. So if you have some content that you're teaching, it could be a YouTube video in this example or something else that you've already taught in the classroom, like a presentation or a pre-teaching that you've delivered. Just creating the depth of knowledge questions at the rigor that you want can be a little bit of a brain drain. Creating STAR practice questions, so giving our students more STAR prep, feedback on student work, or really just going through that stack of papers and grading, delivering exit tickets or pulse checks to see if they've got the information that you delivered, writing a letter of recommendation for students that are entering internship programs or trade programs, or maybe going off to college, creating more math word problems for students that need that additional practice, creating presentations to initially teach, and then create a check for understanding around that presentation. So just these tools or these tasks alone can take up an enormous amount of time. And so Brisk is here to help speed up that workflow on tasks that are similar to that and more. So let's go into it. I mentioned, if you haven't done so already, gravitate to briskteaching.com. Go to that green button on the upper right side and add Brisk for free. We do have a free version. We'll be going over some of those tools today. And then I'll also give you a bit of a preview on what is on the premium version as well, what's behind that paywall. So we are a Chrome extension because the idea is that Brisk is going to populate on top of where you're already working. I'm presenting to all of you in Google Slides right now. And so you can see my little Brisk button is down here at the bottom because that Brisk menu lives where I'm already working. So the idea is if I want to create from what I'm working with, if I want to give feedback on students' Google Docs where they're writing their essays or submitting those, lab reports or other documents, or if I want to create this into a Boost student activity so that we can check for understanding, it's all within that menu right at my fingertips. Now, one of the things that you don't see in the picture menu versus my slide is the student extension. And so that's something that is on the premium only, and that's why you won't see that button populate on your end. Ultimately, that student extension allows students to ask for feedback directly from the system when they are actively working on writing. So kind of think of it like a writing coach, if you will. So there are some different popular tools. We'll help nudge you along to try out different tools in Brisk, but it's a simplistic menu so that it's not overwhelming. That was very intentional by our developers to be just an easy format so that it's easy to navigate. And then, of course, living where you're already working to speed up your workflow. So, let's go back to the everyday tools. I mentioned Google Docs and Google Slides several times, YouTube videos as well. So we'll look at that today. PDFs, I've created a student activity around a PDF that I pulled from HMH into literature. So you can use your HQIMs, you can use other PDFs that you might already have amongst the stacks of your teaching experience. web articles and news articles. So you'll see that Brisk button populate on top of those web pages, and even student assignments as well, whether they are handwritten assignments or if they're submitting via Google Docs or Google Classroom. So why it's the easiest AI tool. It lives where you're already working is the number one thing that I can continue to reiterate. So that Brisk button, I'm actually going to move it out of the way because it's living right on top of my Google Slides, and I can turn it off from the extensions menu so that it's out of the view of my slides if necessary. But it's an all-in-one tool. We have been described as a Swiss Army knife of different AI toolings, just at your fingertips to help you do many different things, all within one singular tool, so you don't have to go to other places. It saves that copy pasting that comes with other AI tools. You don't have to go to a separate website in order to copy things back into where you're working. It already exists on that existing workflow. So I'm going to go beyond the enhancing teacher impact because I think it's best to just see it in action. So the first thing we're going to do is create some instructional materials. And this is, with generative AI, this is kind of what we think of when we're using other AI tools as well. Well, Brisk can do that in addition to many of the other AI tools that you might already be using. Now, not every AI tool is treated equally. So I always recommend if you're vetting out different tools, try the same prompt, but try it amongst different tools and see what the result is that you get. In the animation here, you can see we're creating a presentation about chameleons, and it's even adding in the images directly into Google Slides. So I'm going to take you over into this particular YouTube video. You can see Brisk lives right on top of this web page, so I can move it around so that it's out of my way. And if I want to create a lesson about pollination, I can go to that Create menu. I'm going to go to a lesson plan, and you can see, I'm going to zoom in on this just so it's a little bit easier to see here. I can choose the language that I want it to construct in. If I don't want to do it in Google Docs, but I would prefer a Microsoft Word doc, I can do that. So we function within both suites. And then we also have, let me zoom back out. We also have the standards in here on the free version alone, or sorry, on the premium version. So if you're on the free version, you might not see those standards there, but it is something that is on the schools and districts plan, which you get access to for 14 days. And if you stay with me to the end of this presentation, I'll also give you a link so you can extend that an additional month. So I'm going to go to Texas. I'm going to ask for science. We're going to maybe look at a different grade level. I'm going to take out my search term here, and I'm going to look at plants. And then once I tag that particular standard, and you can tag up to 3, that will contextualize the lesson that you're building. So I'm going to go to 4th grade because that's where I built this for. And then let's say I have 40 minutes to teach this lesson. And I can also ask it to include sources. For right now, I'm just going to leave that off, but you'll know where your AI result is coming from. So it's not just going to be willy-nilly, any AI tooling and just pulling from hallucinations across the internet. You're going to know exactly what source it's pulling from, in addition to also being contextualized by the YouTube video's transcript. And then I'm going to click Brisket. And so this will come up in a Google Doc. So we'll give this just a moment to populate. So you see that little blue circle spinning as it's tagging in that academic standard, what our learning objectives are, the materials, the introduction, the video presentation as we leverage that YouTube video, discussion, activities, conclusion, and then ultimately an extension activity as well. Now, Brisk populates a follow-up menu after we've constructed that lesson plan because it's anticipating we're going to need more than just the lesson plan alone. Maybe we're going to need a quiz. Maybe we're going to need a presentation to go along with it. And so it's anticipating that we may want to add in some additional detail. Like I can say, add in a board game activity and then boost it. Oops, sorry, let me try that again. But you can tack that in for additional refinement. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on. So let's go back over to our presentation. So that's just one of the creation tools, and we'll look at a couple of others as well as we continue on. But I do encourage you, try out the different creation elements, especially presentations and slides, and podcasts I think are really interesting because from the podcast feature, You can very simply create a different learning modality for students so that they're listening to the details around, in this case, pollination, but it can be about volcanoes. It can be about political science. It could be about pretty much anything that you need to create a podcast about, or anything that you're teaching in your classroom. So we're going to move on to translation. And this is also re-leveling. So if you have an article that's in English, let's say it's at a 10th grade level, but you need to level it to more of a 6th grade or 7th grade level. You might have struggling readers. You might have newcomer emerging bilingual students that are still, getting their grasp on the English language. Maybe you want to have it in their native language and you want to translate that article into Spanish at the exact same 10th grade level. You could do all of that within Brisk. So I'm going to take this over to this plate tectonics article that I got from Nat Geo, which is a source that I trust. And so you see that Brisk button is right here, right on top of my web page. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, go to that change level button, and it will assess what the current reading level is. So here it's saying it's 10th grade. And I can select the output format. Again, you could do this in Word if you desire, but I'm going to stick into Docs. And so it's currently at 10th grade. I'm going to say, let's bring it down to 7th grade, and I'm going to keep it in English. I just translated a guide for a new au pair that we're getting. So she is arriving from Colombia and wanted to translate our home manual, our house manual, and the details around my children into Spanish. So it was in her native language. So I just used Brisk last night for that purpose. But of course, you're going to use it instructionally if you want to have any text, especially high quality text like this from Nat Geo, that you might want to teach in another language as well, Spanish being one of them, but we support up to 50 different languages. So it's going to continue constructing this, but in a Google Doc. What I also like about this feature is that it reduces all of the clickbait that comes from news articles, all of the distractions that you see from ads and other things that get in students' way. And so it tends to get in the way of students so that they, get distracted by looking at scooters or looking at other things that it's advertising from those typical news articles. So I'm going to go to this one, bbc.com. And so this is what I'm talking about. You're going to see here's a bank ad that's at the top. I'm going to click that Brisk button, change level, and then same thing. It's 9th grade currently. We're going to switch it to 7th grade, change that reading level, and it opens in that Google Doc, links to the original article, incorporates that image, and then it's going to continue writing the article, but at the level that I've indicated. So very easy to differentiate your materials just from this singular capability alone. Okay, I do see some new messages, so I'm just going to look at that. Will it help you check essays? Yes, we're going to go to inspect writing and give feedback in just a moment, and we'll dig in with essays in just a moment. So you can kind of see this is actively rewriting, this article without all the clickbait in the way in a Google Doc so that we can use it for teaching purposes. And then it will follow up with that follow-up menu as well, where it's going to ask us, do you want a quiz to go along with this? I can create a STAR practice test to go along with this. So that creation piece, you can pair together with some of the other toolings that are there. I can create those depth of knowledge questions. So I'm going to stop generating because it's kind of a long article, but here's that follow-up menu. Now, do I want to translate it? Do I want a lesson to go with it? Do I want a vocabulary list to go along with it? Because this particular article is about airships and aeronautics. So students might not have that vocabulary in their wheelhouse, and we might want to create that as well. So some different suggestions that are right there at your fingertips. What I'm going to do is close this down, bring it back, and actually go to the STAR practice test as well. So where you see that little emoji with the school, that's on the schools and districts plan. So you're not going to see it on the free, but it is available on the premium. So just wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of what's available. But you can certainly use the depth of knowledge questions button. You can certainly use the quiz button, which allows you to create a quiz in Google Forms, and you can do multiple choice and also add in short response and long response questions so that you get some of that constructed response practice. So that's my advice around a workaround for the time being as you're on the free version. So we've got 7th grade. We're not going to focus on STAR algebra. We're going to be focusing on, let's say, social studies or science, even English you could focus on, and then how many questions you want. I'm just going to ask it for 6 questions, and you can tag standards in there as well. And then click Brisket. And so here's that reading comprehension quiz that it's creating right after the article itself. And so those are those questions there. So this one's just multiple choice, but you could also say add in some short constructed response prompts as well. And so it will continue to add those in. Here's a vocabulary and context set of questions. So not just reading comprehension, but also the vocabulary and context. Add in some short response. And then Brisket. So similar to how you Google something, we also we say brisket here as the verb for asking the AI to do something for you. So you can see we have the passage, and then it's going to add in some of those short answers as well. So number 5 and number 6 here, also giving you the short constructed response promptings. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. Immediate feedback. So for the essay question that came up, we absolutely have the ability to give immediate feedback. You're going to be able to do glows and grows, rubric criteria, and next steps on the free version. And it's immediate, and then you can just tack it in as a table on that student's essay. Targeted feedback is going to be on the behind the paywall. So just a heads up there, it is something that is available, but that is one of the more premium features. So I have an essay here. If you don't currently have an essay that you want to test this feature with, then you can go to the AI tools, go to see 30+ AI tools, and there's a targeted feedback generator right here, which will bring up the exact same essay that I am currently using. So feel free to navigate there if you want to try out one of the features. I'm going to click the Brisk button, go to give feedback, and you'll see targeted is right there. But let's just look at rubric criteria as an example. So I can upload maybe my extended constructed response rubric. I want the feedback to be delivered in English. I'm going to upload the rubric from my reserves. So I'm searching RLA. There's that rubric. I'm going to keep that feedback at 8th grade, but I can level it up or down based off of what grade level I'm teaching. And then it will save a prompt history of what you've done previously. So you don't need to remember what you've prompted from paper to paper to paper. It will continue to save that. So you can see some of the other examples, like generate actionable feedback for this assignment that addresses blank. Analyze this draft, focusing on thesis development. So in addition to the rubric, you can also ask it to take into account other guardrails. So I'm just going to leave it generic. Oops, let me zoom back out and Brisket. And you'll see this starts to populate almost in a table on the side over here. Now, because I'm in a Google Doc, I can alter the Google Doc. So the insert button at the top is going to allow me to insert this as a table quickly at the top of that student's paper. And so they have feedback waiting for them the next time they open up this paper to work on it then. Now, targeted feedback, I'll show you very briefly. It's going to leave this as comments. So it will highlight the sentences that it's leaving feedback on. And then those comments are going to be drafted on the right side. So that's really the big difference. But you can definitely leverage rubric criteria. Glows and grows are great, not only for essays, but also for handwritten work in other content areas as well. So let's just do that really quick. I'm going to click the Brisk button. I'm going to go to this little paper clip. And this allows me to upload images, PDFs, or Word documents that I want Brisk to interact with. So I'm going to go to the image here. And I have some images already on my computer. So I'm going to go to this handwritten trigonometry. So it uploads it into the system. And then we can say, okay, now give feedback. I'm going to do a glow and grow. Now it can't do targeted, right? Because it can't highlight any sentences and it's not in a Google Doc. But then again, if you're on the free version, you can leverage these 3 types. So I'm going to do a glow and grow, trigonometry, more 9th or 10th grade. And then I'm just going to say brisket. And let's see what it comes up with. So it says you've shown great effort in setting up the problem and working through the steps systematically. Your diagram is clear and well labeled, which is crucial for geometric problems. You've correctly identified and used the tangent function. And then the grows, double check your arithmetic, consider rounding your answers, try to write out your thought process more clearly between steps to show your reasoning. Because even this handwriting, it can be a little bit illegible to the human eye, but it's great that the AI is able to decipher what is written there. And so it can point out where the student might need to make improvements. And then wonderings to further their learning. Use the glows and grows or the other feedback tools to advance that student's thinking. So hopefully it saves you a ton of time. Giving feedback on student work was such a lengthy task when I was a teacher. And so this is kind of a game changer because you can put that feedback directly into Google Classroom or like we saw in the Google Doc, directly on that student's paper. So they have it ready to iterate on as soon as they open up that paper to work on it the next time. Should save you a significant amount of time. Scoring wise, we are launching that on the premium. So if you do want to have an actual score, just know that that is a capability, but it is going to be behind the paywall. Okay. Another capability that's in here, inspecting student writing. So you want to know if your students have actually written their paper from scratch or if they've made copy pastes from things that they're citing as evidence. So the inspect writing feature gives you a video playback of the student's drafting process. And this is specific to Google Docs. Okay, so I'm going to go to this inspect writing secret communication of wolves essay, click on that brisk button, go to inspect writing, and you'll notice it starts to play that video where I can see the student drafting line by line, when they drafted it, how many edits they made, how long it took them. And then at the bottom, you'll see there's pieces of feedback that were added onto that student's paper. Did they iterate on it? I'll be able to see that. And then there's also the copy paste in there. So that's where I can see, was it one mass copy paste from another source? Maybe they went to ChatGPT themselves, or did they actually draft this up? And where are they making those edits? It's not going to tell you directly if it is AI generated, but at least gives you visibility so that you can prompt a conversation with your students. Right. So this is available on the free version right now. And then if you want the AI detection, that's going to be on the paid version. So there's a little magnifying glass that's at the top, and then it just gives you a little heat map on how likely it came from AI. In this case, because we saw that drafting line by line, that student was drafting line by line, it's pretty unlikely that it came from another source. It looks like the student definitely drafted it up themselves. Okay, lovely. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the essay features. I'm going to close these down as we go into some of the other tools as well. Boost. So I mentioned Brisk was originally started to be a teaching assistant to help you do many of those teacher tasks, but do them faster. And so Boost was created to put AI into the hands of students so that we have this interaction for more of an engagement in a digital workspace, if you will. So this can be your character chats, debates. You can also do inquiry-based activities, brainstorming. But what I see it used as for the most part is a tutoring scenario. So remember, we were looking at this plate tectonics article before. And so maybe we want to have the AI, Brisk Boost, tutor that student to make sure that they've met the learning objectives that are part of our lesson. You can set it up that way and tag the standards in there on the premium version. But if you don't have the premium, it's still pretty much on the mark already, and you can add it into the text entry space. So if you know which standard you're trying to meet, say, hey, Brisk Boost, create this activity, and I want it aligned with the standard. And then you can copy paste that into the text entry field instead of selecting it from the dropdown. So let's go into some different Boost activities, right? So I'm going to go into this one, which I already created on plate tectonics and volcanic activity. So I created it on August 5th. It's been about 11 days now. And the learning objectives are AI generated. but I can edit them. So here we have, let's start that again. Actually, I'm just going to go back entirely. Let's go back to our plate tectonics website. I'm going to click Brisk. And like I said, it takes seconds instead of the hours that it used to take me to do a lot of these activities. So shouldn't take long for us to reprompt this so it's ready to go. So here are those boost activities: tutoring, hook, character chat, debates, inquiry, brainstorm. You could also do assessments like a pulse check or an exit ticket. We also have a writing coach that's in there. So some of the same feedback tools that are available on the teacher side, this is the student side. You're setting up a student experience where they're maybe getting personalized writing assistance or feedback in the glows and grows as they're in the process of writing as well. So a couple different opportunities to check out and try with students this year. So I'm just going to go into a tutoring activity. The student can change their language while they are already in the activity. So I'm going to start in English, but any of my students can switch to their native language at any point if desired. I'm going to set this up for 7th grade, but again, I can switch to other grade levels from the drop down if desired. And I'm just going to click Boost. So those learning objectives, you see that they're actively populating just based off of what's in the article. And here we go. We have 4 learning objectives up here. Let me click the edit button so we can see them, and I'll zoom in a little bit. So students should be able to explain the relationship between plate tectonics and volcanic activity, identify and describe the volcanoes, 3 major volcanic hazards, and then discuss 2 methods scientists use to monitor and predict volcanic activity. Pretty robust scientific activity, right? And this can also be an ELA-focused activity where students are accessing informational text. You can add other ones in here as well. So if you want them to demonstrate using evidence, then you can add that in. Just go ahead and click add another and then curate it. I'm going to save this as is. And we're going to look at the tutoring activity as it currently stands, but then we'll revise the role. So let's start here. Again, I'm going to zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see. Welcome to our lesson on plate tectonics. I'm excited to explore Earth's powerful forces. What do you already know about how volcanoes form? There is a speech feature, so it will read to the students for any students that need that. There's also a speech back feature, so students can speak back instead of typing up within the chat. And then this is where they would end up changing their language. So they can select what language they are most comfortable in, but we're going to stay in English for the time being. So what do you already know about how volcanoes form? The idea is that we would have already studied this. Maybe it was already taught within the class. And so I'm going to say they form from molten rock. And so Brisk Boost is going to say, that's right, volcanoes do form. When the magma reaches the surface, it becomes lava. Do you know why this molten rock moves upward in the first place? It's connected to something called plate tectonics. I think they push it up the volcano. You're on the right track. Plate tectonics are involved here. And so it gives them a little bit of explanation, but it is not going to give everything to them. So now it says, think of it like puzzle pieces floating on hot soup. What happens at their edges? Well, some students are not going to get this. So I'm just going to say, I don't know. And then it will provide some additional explanation. The emojis are there in order to make it a more engaging experience. But remember, I said you can customize the role. So this is how the tutor was created from just prompting the boost activity. But if I go to edit the role, you can see the guardrails that we've put in place for that tutor, and then we can refine it. So you can customize this for your own classroom in the way that makes the most sense for your students. So it's saying you're an educational chatbot helping 7th grade students learn about plate tectonics, guide students through the key concepts, types of volcanoes, hazards, and monitoring methods. And then we can add in an additional element like here, instead of style, I'm going to add this down here. So I said, reference some of the most well-known volcanoes in the world and include current events where volcanoes impacted industry. That's more of a guardrail. So I'm going to tack it down there, and then style, talk like Bugs Bunny. Now, the educational value of Bugs Bunny is not necessarily worthwhile, but I just want to give you the idea of what it looks like when we put some guardrails in place and then customize that chatbot. So now it's starting with, hey, what's up, Doc? So it's Bugs Bunny appropriate. And so now it says, do you know what makes volcanoes form in the first place? So it kind of refines the experience based off of whatever guardrails or edits that we make to the role of the AI chatbot. So I'm going to say 2, where tectonic plates meet. That's correct. Volcanoes mostly form where tectonic plates meet. These giant puzzle pieces of Earth's crust are slowly moving around, even if they're slow as molasses. So you get the idea around these activities. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I know we're super zoomed in right now. Let's boost this Power of Pollinators YouTube video. Okay, but you can use any YouTube video that you might already use in class right now. So feel free to gravitate towards any existing YouTube video that you want to build an activity around. If you haven't done so already, tack in that the Brisk icon. So you should have installed it on the Chrome extension from briskteaching.com and clicking that green button at the top. So I'm going to go to the red backpack and say, let's do a Boost student activity around this article. Now I could also create a presentation from this and then boost that. I could create a resource from this and then boost that. So you can boost around any resource, whether it's a web page or in this case, a video. It can also be a presentation or a rubric for that writing coach. So you can do a lot of different things with Boost. So I'm just giving you some examples today. So for this one, we're going to do a bit of a brainstorm. We're going to keep it at 6th grade in English. Click on Boost. And you'll see it formulates a frame around that video. So again, reduces a lot of the noise that is rife amongst YouTube videos. So they're not going to have all of the distractions on the page because we're really trying to get them to focus on the video alone. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to kind of reformat what we're looking at here. The learning objectives are created. The edit button's at the top. So again, you can refine the AI role. You can also refine the learning objectives. And then we're going to click Let's Go for this brainstorm. What specific part about pollinators would you like to brainstorm today? Maybe about bees, butterflies, or ways to help them. How do I help the bees? Great question. You can help bees by all of these different things. What idea sounds most interesting to you? Nesting spots. What are those? And so it's going to continue to engage with the student. Now it will highlight for you if that student's not focused constructively. So just a heads up, if there's an instance where a student is maybe saying, this is stupid, or I don't want to do this, it's going to highlight for you that that student's not focused constructively so that you can offer a bit more human support. The AI is not intended to replace you. It's intended to provide some support so that it alleviates your instructional load. All right, I'm going to go back to a couple of other things to look at. This was a file that I uploaded before. It doesn't look like much because it's just an image. But remember, you've got that upload feature there at the little paper clip. You could even take a picture of an anchor chart on your wall and upload that, and then ask Brisk to interact with it in some way. So I'm going to say, let's do a creation. And I want to create a presentation about this. Actually, yeah, we'll do a presentation. So let's do 8 slides. I'm going to make it 10th grade appropriate. You can do this without images on the free, but the premium does have images as well. So I'm going to incorporate that and then including the sources so you can see that source feature. And then it's going to give you some different templates that you could leverage. So I'm just going to do dark and then Brisk that. You could always change the formatting later, because remember, this is in Google Slides. You own it once it's created. So for the 2 weeks that you have access to Brisk initially, and again, I mentioned I'll have an extra month for you at the end of this presentation, if you stay with me. You'll have the ability to create these different resources, and then they stay in your Google Drive. So it's not just going to go away if you lose access to premium or you're back on the free version. Leverage the premium version as much as you can. So I had indicated to create it in Spanish. So here you see it's focusing on American monopolies. And it's incorporating this political cartoon. So even something as nondescript as this political cartoon, Brisk can parse it out and understand the educational value to provide you with what you need in order to teach this content. And here is the source information that I mentioned. So as long as we ask for citations, it's going to tell you where it's pulling from in order to create this presentation. Now, the follow-up menu is, do you want to translate this? Do you want to add more slides? What do you want those slides to be on? Now, the beauty of AI is that you can continue to curate. So I wanted to dive into Brisk Next. So if you have access to premium, you may see Brisk Next is populating on your Brisk menu. So let me go back and I'll show you where that lives. This button right here. So it's got a little home and it should say next right to it. And what it's doing is anticipating what you might want to teach next. And then you can refine and refine and refine through an instructional conversation with a chatbot. So let me show you what I mean. So we are going to focus on, let me take these standards out. Let's go back to the pollination. So I'm just going to put pollination in as a subject area. I'm going to say, let's focus on it at 3rd grade. What suite am I working in, Google or Microsoft? And I can even attach a picture of something that I want it to focus on, like the plant life cycle. But I'm just going to leave it very generic for right now so that we can refine. And then next is going to make suggestions for preparation, for engagement, and also assessment. So those are the 3 categories that we are encouraging the Brisk Next to focus on as it's helping you curate more resources. So here's the preparation category. Here's some power slides. So you could create this at the click of a button, and it's already suggesting what might be useful to you in your classroom. A podcast, so a bee's journey. So it's a 5-minute podcast. Let's just create that real quick so we can listen to it. All right, and I'm going to click play.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Bee's Journey podcast.
And I hope that plays through so that you can hear it as well. If you can't hear it on your end, create a podcast about literally anything by going to the create menu and then click create a podcast. And it will be ready to listen to within seconds. And we've got a transcript that is actively still growing. Now, I could also boost this. So again, for the boost student activities, I could go to my Brisk menu, click boost student activity, and then students can listen to this. They can see the transcript. They'll have access to this web page, and then they'll have that AI chatbot that is continuing to engage them as they master the content that is presented within the podcast. So really cool learning modality to get students activated in an auditory way instead of just reading some of the content that might be in an article or watching a YouTube video. Get them focused in a bit of a different manner. So going back to Brisk Next, I can generate more preparation materials by clicking this button from this particular suggestion. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can see the engagement section is here where it's saying, okay, let's create an inquiry activity, pollinator detective, a bee's mission, flower versus wind. You don't need to know how to use AI right now to have ideas that are generated at your fingertips because Brisk Next is doing a lot of that creativity for you. And then also assessments at the bottom. Do we want a quiz around the pollination process? Do we want a pulse check, an exit ticket? So some of these are boost activities, but then also the quiz itself is going to create in a Google form. So you see that little purple icon, and now it's creating in a Google form at the click of a button. We can also refine those Brisk Next recommendations. So you don't have to go with the face value of what it's suggesting. You can say, well, I'm focusing more on butterflies instead of bees for pollination. And then it's going to continue to refine. So here is that multiple choice quiz. And then I'm going to go to Brisk again. I'm going to reload this and then Brisk. And then you can say add more questions, write another quiz, and you can also add in the short constructed response options as well, particularly if you're tying this to an article. So some different items that might be worth exploring. Now, I mentioned before I had created a boost activity around HMH's into literature. So you can use PDFs from your high quality instructional materials. And this was a character chat built around Ender's Game. So this was the student study guide. And then the character chat was with Ender Wiggin himself. And you can see that student's information there, or the way that they engaged with the chatbot. Now, when I go to recent, you'll see all of the boost activities that I've created, all of the podcasts that I've created. So here's that Bella the Bee podcast that we just created. I can click view all, and it will give me an entire list of different activities that I've created. And then if I want to see how my students have been engaging with it, I can quickly go to open, and that's going to give me that visibility into the students' chat. So this is how they've been engaging with it. And then anything that's concerning as well will be flagged with a little red exclamation point. Now, we have insights that are being built in. So here's an example of an entire student list. And then it's going to start populating some different activity insights based off of how they're meeting the objectives. So what are they doing really well? Those are the strengths. And then what needs work? So how can you pivot in order to provide more support to students? It will highlight for you where you need to step in and provide a little bit more of that human support. So again, you can set these up across any content area. So I know I'm using a lot of different science examples, and I showed a math example before. If you're an ELA teacher, you could definitely leverage it for ELA purposes. So definitely reference, try out, depending on what you're trying to teach. Now let's go back to next. Okay, so here we have all of our elements around pollination. I'm going to say I want to focus more on hawk moths. And so now Brisk Next on the right side is saying, okay, well, let's refine it even more. And so we're going to get into hawk moth heroes, moth minute, pollination process map. These are different preparation suggestions, different engagement suggestions, and different assessment suggestions. Also add in hummingbirds is what I'm going to type now. If you're unfamiliar with hawk moths, they look very similar to hummingbirds. So that's why I'm asking it to provide a little bit more detail so that we can almost do a compare and contrast of hummingbirds and hawk moths. And so here we have a presentation on night versus day pollinators that we could create at the click of a button. So it's just a suggestion, but if I want to refine it even more, then I can add in some additional context so that it refines the guardrails around what we're asking the AI to do. Okay, I can generate more. So if I don't like what's populating here already, by generating more, it's going to give me even more suggestions. So here's fact cards, flower design challenges, pollinator mysteries, pollination word problems, poetry frames, adaptation stories. The possibilities are endless. So I encourage you, play around with this and look at different learning modalities. Hopefully it helps with some of that creativity regarding how to switch it up in your classroom to provide students different types of activities to engage with the material that you're teaching. All right, I mentioned I would give you a couple of additional tips and tricks. So again, if at this point, if you haven't installed Brisk, I don't know where we're at. So go to briskteaching.com, click that add for free button on the top right, and then it will walk you through the process of installing it on your computer. And then you'll be able to, or installing it in your Chrome extension, and then you're going to see it everywhere where you need it, kind of like what I've been demoing today so far. Okay, at any point, you can click that Brisk button from your extension menu, and then it will go away, and then you can bring it back. So if I don't want this on top of my slides as I'm actively teaching, you could very easily just click that at the top of your extension menu and it will go away. And then you can always bring it back when you need it. So how to save 10 plus hours each week. We've looked at creation, change level. So definitely try out the different features. Give feedback, particularly if you are teaching anything that has to do with writing, which is, I think, most of us here. Definitely try the give feedback options. Glows and grows, rubric criteria, and next steps. So if you're not sure how to nudge that student along to get to that next level, absolutely give that a try and see if it's something that will save you some time. Inspect writing, like we looked at before, and then all of those boost student activities, less of a time saver, but more of just a switch up on the learning modality. Now, different tips and tricks in our last 10 minutes. So you can use the Create Anything tool to create things that are not already within the menu. So I mentioned before, we tried to keep the menu pretty simplistic. Okay, yep, 9 minutes left. Perfect. So I mentioned we try to keep the menu pretty simplistic so that it's not overwhelming. And if there's something that you don't see, like I want to create a rap about hawk moths and hummingbirds, then you can go to that Create Anything tool and then type in that text entry piece, what you're trying to create for your classroom. And then you can, of course, refine it afterwards, similar to what we saw within Brisk Next. On our website, we do have the ideas for the Something Else tool as well. So how you would gravitate towards that is go up to the resources and or the other tools that are here. And there's a lot that you can dig into as you're learning the different tools that we've gone over today. All right, click around and explore all those Brisk buttons. Try it out in different, just experiment. Try it out in different content that you're teaching. Try it with your HQIM. So put Brisk under the pressure test, if you will. Now you can add specifics to the prompt box. So you don't have to take it at face value, like I said before. You can certainly edit. And the more guardrails that you put in, the better the result will be from the AI tooling that you're using. You can always rewrite, you can always add on. So that follow-up menu, just one caveat, once you click out of it, you can't get it back. So you kind of have to start over in order to get back to that follow-up menu. But once you've clicked out of it, it will just bring up the main Brisk menu again. And you can oftentimes get a similar result. But the reason that follow-up menu exists is because we're trying to provide some support to make it easier to create and curate bundles of resources that you can use in tandem. Like when you have a lesson plan, you also have the presentation you're going to teach in that lesson. You also have your vocabulary list. You also have a quiz. So you can really bundle things together. Know before you go. So we are ironclad privacy. So it's going to protect your student information. So the boost activities that I shared with you today, it's a safe space for students to engage with AI. And so highly recommend trying that out with your students, in addition to also leveraging the teacher tools for yourself to save time. We do have a Brisk Bites video series. So if there's a particular feature that you're interested in, like I mentioned the podcast today, and we created a podcast, if you want to know more about what you could do with that, head to the YouTube channel under Brisk Teaching, and then look at our Brisk Bites. They are very short videos that just feature one element of what's possible with Brisk. So finite little videos that are just a few minutes long. I mentioned the resources on our website, so that's a great place to start. One of my favorite areas is to go to tools, see all 30 plus AI tools, and then there's try it buttons everywhere. So you can try out decodable text generation. You can try out creating things for your math class. You can try out teaching resources or creating exemplars for students. And the exemplar menu asks you if you want to do a meets, exceeds, or below level. So you can have multiple exemplars at your fingertips. So if you haven't already joined the Brisk community, you certainly can. On our professional development section of our website, you can get a certification to add to your email signature. So again, I'm going to go up to the top, resources, professional development, and then you're going to see that we have different webinars. The Brisk Bites are also housed here. And then we have the AI Professional Level 1 certification. This will get you an additional month of a Brisk Premium if you go through the certification course, which I recommend. But I also mentioned that I would provide that for you too. So if you've fallen in love with Brisk, like so many other teachers have, so here's our wall of love, then this QR code will get you access to a full month of Brisk. So just follow the QR code, of course, dive a little bit deeper with clicking through so that we can identify what account you're working in to activate premium on that particular account. And then if you don't want to start it today, you can certainly email me when you're ready. My email is Cheryl@briskteaching.com. And Cheryl is with an S, so it's a little bit of an unconventional spelling. But I am happy to get you activated at that point. If you want to take advantage of your initial 2 weeks of free, if you just install it today, and of the free premium, and then activate premium after that. So you have a full 6 weeks. So you could certainly do that. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share Brisk with you today. And if you do have questions, please do reach out anytime. Our Brisk team is eager to help. And we encourage you to, once you fall in love with it, add to our wall of love so that we can continue spreading the word to other teachers about how Brisk is this major game changer to speed up your workflow and change how much time it's taking you to do a lot of these existing tasks, but just make it go a little bit faster and give you back some of your time. So in the last 4 minutes, I'll just keep the Teams meeting up. And if you have additional questions, I can dive a little bit deeper. Okay, and I see someone is typing, so. Yep, thank you for the information. Tell your friends, absolutely spread the word about Brisk. Awesome. There was a comment that I had from someone that I shared Brisk with recently, where they said, "Oh my gosh, this is just like Clippy when Microsoft Word started," that it was just right there to help me at any point. And absolutely 100%, it's a similar experience where you're in the process of doing some sort of task, and then Brisk is right there to help you if you need the help. Awesome. Thank you, Alicia. And if there are any additional questions, I will take them. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate all of you joining me today. And I hope you have an excellent EdTech training day today and you get new tools in your wheelhouse to help save you time and make this year the best school year ever.